Redshift here, doing my part to shift perceptions out of the pink and into the red. Promiscuity is actually extremely feminine, and it shows how feminine the top guys are. Now, why are the top guys so feminine? Well, they're feminine for a couple of reasons. Number one, the corruption that has happened to them because of the power and luxury they have because of their wealth and status. People don't challenge them because they fear their retaliation. They fear the withdrawal of their provision or whatever, etc. So people just obey top men. This automatically corrupts people. Like, it corrupts the top man who can easily demand obedience, that is. Not from his wife, but from just everybody. Like a king. It's the same problem with being a king. A king has absolute power, so people fear a king. So no one has the courage to tell the king the truth. And the king himself doesn't have the great moral character. He doesn't have great moral character because power corrupts. And he's just a man, so he's corrupted by the power just like anybody would be. I mean, to have that kind of power and not abuse it, to have absolute power and not abuse it, you would have to basically be a saint. You'd have to be like Buddha or something. So that absolute power corrupts kings, and that means they're more likely to take their anger out on people in an unfair way, and this makes it a guarantee that people will be less likely to tell the king the truths that he does not want to hear, which would make, the truths that would make him angry, which are the truths that he needs to hear the most, because the truths that we need to hear are the ones that we don't want to hear. And that's why we're ignorant of them and need to hear them. Because we've been subconsciously turning a blind eye to those particular truths. So this guarantees that people with great power, whether kings or dictators or presidents of countries or CEOs or even just top 1% guys in every town and city, these guys are corrupted by not hearing the truths that they need to hear. It means that top people are always delusional, are always living in an ivory tower, and are thus no longer fit to rule because of that delusion. The very intelligence and wealth which gives them power is the direct source of the power. The very intelligence and wealth is that stuff, that wealth, and their intelligence gives them wealth, and then their wealth gives them power, and their intelligence itself is power, and the charisma that often goes along with having a high IQ and a good memory. This all gives power, and this power corrupts them and deludes them and makes them no longer fit for ruling. Not just no longer fit for ruling in terms of being a president or something, but even no longer fit for running a family or whatever. So it's almost like, it's basically like, the more powerful you are, the less fit you are to have any power. You see, so morality has to go along with power. But unfortunately, like, the greater your power, the greater your morality has to be to keep you in check, and the greater your devotion to truth has to be, right? But that's not what happens, because the greater your intelligence and wealth and charisma and all the rest of it, and the more you have impunity, and therefore the more you can get away with not being devoted to truth, with not being sexually restrained, with not being compassionate, etc. So then people at the top end up being, sexually degenerate assholes who are totally deluded. And yet, because of their power, and because everybody obeys them slavishly, because they kind of have to, out of fear of the top guy, this means that these top people get the further delusional belief that they're actually fit to rule. And then they exercise rule, and they usually do so in a fucked up way, and then they fuck the whole country up. You see? So the only way to solve this problem is to have everyone genetically engineered to have equal IQs or almost equal IQs. I mean, there can be some difference, like, the smartest people in the country having 180 IQs and the dumbest people in the country having 170 or 165 IQs, but really you have to narrow that difference between the very dumbest and the very smartest people in society. You have to narrow that down way, 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 way down. Because now, today, there's people with 65 IQs in Africa, and I'm not talking retarded people. I'm just talking like some countries in Africa have an average IQ of 65, maybe even 60. Although I think 65 is the average of the lowest IQ country in Africa. 65 IQs is the average of those people, that particular country, of that particular, strand of black people. Whereas, some Jews and some, probably some whites too, and probably some Asians too, they got 180 IQs. So you have people in humanity that literally have IQs that are more than twice as high as other people. That is an insane difference. You know what I mean? 65 compared to 180, that's a 115 IQ point difference. And the percentage is insane. You know what I mean? That is totally insane. So it's much, 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 much better if we can genetically engineer everybody to have roughly equal IQs, so that, at most there's just let's say 7% difference in IQ. maybe a 5% difference in IQ between the very dumbest and the very smartest people. This means that hardly anybody's going to be able to, rip anybody off. Everybody's going to be roughly the same power, so everybody's going to be roughly the same level of, no one's going to be diluted because of their power, because no one's going to have massive unjust power, massively unequal power. And so then everybody, even though they'll have really high IQs, everybody will be really humble, right? And this will be very, very good. Everybody will be way more devoted to truth, etc., right? This tendency to want to take your anger out on people that don't deserve it, like kings do, because of the power that your corruption has created in you, this means that people are unlikely to tell you the harsh truths that you should be hearing, so they don't. Also, Jews and women are deceptive and stuff. And isn't promiscuity usually tied in with deception? It's not like you're going to tell the girl, hey, I'm only going to bang you this one night and then that's going to be it. I mean, sometimes that's the agreement between people who have a one-night stand, but a lot of times it's just like the girl is going to take a chance on this guy, like she likes him and she's going to have sex with him and she's thinking, hey, it might turn into something. She's not necessarily believing it will, but, she's thinking, there's a chance this could turn into something, why not? If you told her, if guys all told women, this is only going to be a one-night stand, way fewer one-night stands would happen. It'd probably be cut down by probably at least 50% of all the one-night stands that happen. It would radically shrink the amount of one-night stands that happen if guys all told girls that before they fucked them. Promiscuity is tied in with deception. Or the guy gets in a relationship with a girl. He doesn't tell her in the very beginning, hey, I'm only going to bang you for 4 or 5 weeks and then I'm going to dump you. Would she get into a relationship with that guy? Would she start sleeping with that guy? No, she wouldn't. Now, women usually pretend, and this is because now guys may say, oh, no, she was fine with it. She was okay with it. We were on the same page. No, there's statistics saying that, I can't remember what the percentage is, but I think it was at least in the 20s, might have been in the 50s of percentages. It was pretty high. It was at least 20-some% of women. It might have been 30 or 40-some% of women, or maybe even higher. It was a significant percentage of women who say that, they usually pretend to be okay with a casual relationship or whatever with a guy, even though they're not. Right? So girls will get into a relationship with a guy acting like they're okay with it being a one-night stand or like it's just a casual thing, but really they're looking for a serious relationship. But if the guy told her straight up, right in the beginning, before he even fucked her the first time, hey, I'm only going to bang you for 4 or 5 weeks, and then I'm going to dump you, she would never get into a relationship with that guy. Most women do not get into a relationship with that guy if he told her that ahead of time, right? Or even if he said it, she would only get into a relationship because she doesn't believe him, or because she thinks she can change his mind, because that's not what she wants. You see, so promiscuity is tied in with deception. Even if he's going to stay with her, if it's going to be a short-term relationship, 3 to 6 months. If he told her that beforehand, she wouldn't get into a relationship with him. So promiscuity is absolutely tied in with deception. Promiscuity is usually deceptive, even if it's only deception by omission. These guys are not saying those things, like, hey, I'm going to dump you after 5 weeks, or I'm going to dump you after a few months. So it's usually deceptive. But it's a running away. It's a running away as well, isn't it? Promiscuity is a running away from the problems with women. It's men in society as a whole, or at least a huge percentage of men being promiscuous, is men in society being, are running away. They're running away from the fact that there's problems with women, right? It's these men saying, oh, instead of fixing women, instead of starting to spank the hell out of women to make them better, we're just going to walk away from women. This is the cowardly solution. And also, it's hedonism. And it's also cowardly from another angle. Not only are they too cowardly or lazy to enact a solution of spanking women to make them good again, these men are also too cowardly and or delusional and or willfully ignorant to face reality. They refuse to face the reality that sex is not inherently satisfying and that therefore promiscuity should not be pursued, both because promiscuity is a dead-end road, it doesn't lead to happiness, and because promiscuity causes incels and therefore massive societal instability, and it causes divorce rape. And it's the very cause of gynocentrism and simping and male weakness. And if you don't believe me on this, then I will let you know that I will be putting out a video in the future proving that male promiscuity is the major cause of divorce rape. Because one guy in the comment section said that, that's not the cause of divorce rape or whatever. I need to meet more men who have been divorce raped. This is bullshit. And I'm going to prove it later on in another video. These promiscuous men refuse to face the fact that relationships these days are unsatisfactory. They always were throughout all of human history. Relationships were always unsatisfactory. Romantic relationships were. Actually, all relationships, friendships, sibling relationships, all relationships are inherently unsatisfactory. You know, it always was throughout all of human history, but it's the degree of unsatisfactoriness that has changed. You know, there might have been 20, 30% unsatisfactoriness in a relationship, 2,000, 4,000 years ago. But now it's like fucking 70, 80, 90, 95% unsatisfactoriness, which is why there's so many breakups and then so many divorces. I mean, really, a lot of long-term relationships never make it to the marriage phase, but they're together for 2, 5, 7 years even, right? Before they break up for good. So it's like these relationships should also be considered marriages, basically. And so when you talk about the failure rate of marriages, those really should be counted into the failure rate of marriages. And if you look at it that way, marriages' divorce rate is insane these days. Like if you consider those breakups of long-term relationships that were never marriages officially, if you consider those marriages as well, goddamn, the divorce rate is probably 90%, maybe 95%. And so obviously relationships these days are almost all unsatisfactory, right? So it's a degree, it's about the degree of unsatisfactoriness. You know, marriages in the past are maybe 20, 30% unsatisfactory. Now there's like good marriage is like 50% unsatisfactory, and a bad marriage is like, 80% unsatisfactory, assuming it doesn't lead to a divorce. You see what I'm saying? It's like, just because relationships are always unsatisfactory doesn't mean they were anything like they are today. You see? And relationships are especially unsatisfactory these days due to bad female character created by male cowardice, male promiscuity, poverty. Female and poverty is part of male cowardice because why are women in the workforce? Because men are no longer disciplining women and forcing them to stay out of the workforce, right? And, women and male poverty is part of male promiscuity as well, because not that it's the majority of men being promiscuous, it's the top 20% mainly, but it's also men in the middle class being promiscuous as well. Maybe not anywhere to the same degree, but they're also being promiscuous. And serial monogamy is promiscuity. And like I was saying, male promiscuity is part of male poverty because male promiscuity makes it so that women are always trying to want to trade up, right? They want to get the best man possible. But they use career as a way of trying to get a man. So really, women working is also part of hypergamy. And so, men's wages being driven down by a huge percent is not actually 50%, because women usually get out of the workforce eventually. But it is a lot. They probably drive down male wages by probably at least 20, 30, 40%, right? So male wages being significantly lower is because of women being in the workforce. And women are in the workforce because of male promiscuity, because they're always trying to get, move up to the next better guy. You know what I mean? So it's like, male cowardice, male promiscuity, poverty, female entitlement. These things are all intimately connected. They're inextricably connected. And female entitlement exists also from advancing standard of living due to technology. So there's many reasons that your relationships are unsatisfactory these days. But a lot of it's preventable, MGTOW men refuse to face the fact that relationships and sex are unsatisfactory. MGTOW men act like relationships are unsatisfactory, but sex is not. And I'm talking about the non-MGTOW monks. I'm talking to MGTOWs who still have sex with women. These guys act like relationships are satisfactory, but sex isn't. I mean, like, relationships are unsatisfactory, but sex is satisfactory. That's kind of what they're acting like, basically. And that, therefore, one is only truly being logical if one becomes a Buddhist monk, right? Due to the fact that the truth is that relationships and sex are unsatisfactory, right? And if you're really so, like, against unsatisfactory things like relationships, then you should also be, against sex, because sex is like an itch that, you scratch it, but it just makes the itch, happen again, right? So if you're really going to be logical and you really want to avoid unsatisfactoriness, you really should become a Buddhist monk and let go of all attachments, because this dukkha principle, which is, in other words, unsatisfactoriness, suffering, stress, which pervades everything, which Buddha, pointed out, and which, other religions basically accept as well, which is why they focus on God more than anything else. Because all worldly things are unsatisfactory, and even Christians and Muslims and others believe this. Because it's true. Everything is unsatisfactory. All movies, all TV shows, all music, dancing, every worldly enjoyment is unsatisfactory. Even high levels of meditation are unsatisfactory, except for the very, very, very highest level of meditation, which is only attainable if you've attained a certain level of enlightenment. So really, other than enlightenment, there really is no getting beyond unsatisfactoriness. So if you're really opposed to unsatisfactoriness, you should become a Buddhist monk and start trying to attain enlightenment, right? This principle of unsatisfactoriness, this dukkha principle, is not just something that applies to women in relationships. It's something that applies to absolutely every single thing that you can possibly think of. Hobbies, exercise, sex, relationships, having kids, being an activist, watching TV, listening to music, playing music, such as playing the piano. Absolutely everything is unsatisfactory. Relationships are unsatisfactory and sex is unsatisfactory. So instead of facing this fact and becoming a Buddhist monk, or a celibate or focusing on meditation and focusing on upgrade of moral character and focusing on wisdom and enlightenment, focusing mainly on achieving enlightenment instead of focusing on these things as our goal in life so that we can attain true happiness. Instead of doing this, we're just going to go around having sex with a lot of women and refusing to commit to any women, and we're going to also delusionally and femininely choose to be willfully ignorant about promiscuity's utterly destructive effect on society. We're going to ignore all that. We're going to ignore the fact that sex is inherently unsatisfactory. We're going to ignore the fact that, we're being destructive and we're taking women's pair-bonding ability, thus contributing, even if only in a small way, to the divorce rate of those men that those women marry down the line. We're going to ignore all that, and we're just going to go around sleeping with a lot of women, as if sex with lots of women is satisfying, as if it's anything other than empty. But if you don't agree with me on this, just go talk to a sex addict. A sex addict will tell you that sex is not satisfying. It's miserable, but they're addicted to it, so they can't stop. You see, this is delusional behavior to act like, women are unsatisfying and societal stability doesn't matter. But, to act like, relationships are unsatisfying, but sex is, which is basically what they're implying MGTOW men are. The MGTOWs who have sex with women, right? This is totally delusional, right? This is feminine behavior. This is cowardly behavior. We're just going to walk away from the female psychopathy problem instead of deal with it and fix it. We're just going to walk away. We're not going to deal with the effects of what we've created with our cowardice and our refusal to overthrow the government and our bad raising of women and our refusal to spank women and force them to behave. You see? So the MGTOW men that sleep with women are inherently cowardly. Now, you could also actually level this accusation against communes as well, or you could seem to level this accusation against communes as well. That you could say that, they're just walking away from the problem of government tyranny. They're not trying to fix the government tyranny problem. The communes aren't. They're not trying to fix the lack of freedom problem. They're just walking away. You could say that, but you'd be a bit wrong, or in some cases you'd be wrong. If the commune is doing everything it possibly can to grow its own power, have eugenic progress in the commune, etc., so that the commune can eventually lead to an overthrow of the government, because of the commune getting so big, so rich, and so eugenic that it has a huge influence on society, so that it can, either allow the government to collapse and take the government's place, or so that it can, overthrow the government or whatever, or cause the government to follow the commune's good example. You can either, if the commune is doing that, then the commune is actually not, it's not fair to level that accusation of, hypocrisy or cowardice, from walking away. You can't level that accusation against a commune like that, you see, but it depends what kind of commune it is, right? When the government collapses, a lot of people might start emulating that commune's good example. And if the commune is really trying to progress as much as possible, then it actually, in a sense, is working toward the end of government, especially if it's intentionally trying to do so. And then when society starts copying the commune and having half their kids from sperm bank sperm, then the rest of society becomes far more eugenic, far more sustainable, far more independent, etc. And if you're doing that also, then you are perhaps justified in walking away from the government, especially if you're not cowardly and would like to overthrow the government, would prefer to, but merely cannot yet because you don't have enough people in the country who agree with you about overthrowing the government, and thus you cannot yet overthrow the government. So there's no use trying, at least not yet. But MGTOW is not advocating that we bring women back under control. And a lot of communes are not advocating that we overthrow the government or even try to innovate the government out of existence or anything. So yeah, you can criticize those communes, but if you do communes like I'm talking about, you do it highly eugenic, you do it highly, frugal, highly, with the goal of eventually bringing about anarcho-capitalism in the world. If you do it that way, then it's amassing a lot of wealth, making the commune super moral, making it monogamous, etc., traditionalist, spanking the women, making the men be an absolute authority over all the women, so that there's not a single woman in the commune who has more status than even the lowest status man in the commune. You do the communes correctly, then it's a situation where it's, it is working toward the overthrow of government, essentially, and they're intentionally intending it for that purpose. You see, so then you cannot level that accusation of cowardice against such a commune. But MGTOW is not advocating that we bring women back under control. Most of MGTOW seems to not be interested in bringing women back under her thumb. bringing women back to heel. Most of MGTOW seems uninterested in spanking women, getting women to be slavishly obedient to their husbands again, like they were in the past, back when it was much more prosperous, functional, and happy in society. Most of MGTOW seems to be uninterested in getting women to become anarcho-capitalists, so the women are no longer supporting Big Daddy government as the superior alpha. A woman who is an anarcho-capitalist and is slavishly obedient to her husband, that is a woman who is truly submissive to her husband. Even a seemingly submissive woman is not actually necessarily submissive to her husband if she's a statist. Because if she's a statist, she believes that women should be able to vote as well, probably. Right? She probably believes that, and probably believes a bunch of other stuff as well, right? And she actually believes that there is a superior alpha out there, the government. And she believes that there should be a superior alpha out there if she's a statist. And that therefore, she believes she should have the right to appeal to that superior alpha if she ever decides to turn on her husband. If she ever decides that she wants a divorce for whatever reason. You see? So pretty much any statist women out there are non-submissive women, even if they seem like very submissive women. So only women who are utterly submissive to their husbands, utterly obedient to their husbands, and are also anarcho-capitalists. And not just officially anarcho-capitalists like they're calling themselves that, but I'm talking women who are actually anarcho-capitalists, and are hardcore anarcho-capitalists who are fighting to create anarcho-capitalism, and who strongly believe in anarcho-capitalism, and are willing to work toward creating anarcho-capitalism, and are willing to sacrifice to make anarcho-capitalism a reality. Only these women who are both submissive and are hardcore anarcho-capitalists. Only women like this are truly submissive to their husband. Although you could say, what if her husband is a statist? Then isn't she just being submissive to her husband by being a statist? Isn't she just blindly believing what he believes, and is not believing in statism and she's not believing in statism out of any desire for superior authority to turn to? She's just blindly believing it because her husband believes it. Okay, yeah, that's possible. You never know. Maybe she is a statist merely because her husband is, and she's never really thought the issue through. That's entirely possible, right? Maybe deep down she actually is submissive, right? Or maybe she's not submissive and only believes in, but then again, maybe she is. Maybe she only believes in statism because her man believes it. You don't really know. And that's a problem. But plus, her man, under a patriarchal culture where men all have the absolute authority over women, especially over their woman and their family members who are female and stuff, the same as parents are supposed to have over their children, and the same as the authority that parents used to have over their children. In a society like that, where men have absolute power over their wives, women will believe whatever their man tells them to believe. And yet government is something that women can turn to in order to overrule her man's authority. So isn't a man cucking himself by being a statist? At least isn't a married man cucking himself by being a statist? Yes, he is. So, that's another reason men have to be anarcho-capitalists. I mean, there's many, many, many reasons why men really have to be anarcho-capitalists. But yet another reason is that, they have to be anarcho-capitalists to set a good example for their wives, so that their wives are anarcho-capitalists and their daughters are anarcho-capitalists, so that women don't believe in having a superior authority to turn to in case they want to cuck their man with divorce, right? Divorce him against his will or whatever. In case they want to rebelliously get out from under their man's authority, right? And if she knows she has that to turn to, that greater authority that she can turn to that supersedes her man's authority, if she knows that power is out there, if there's which she does, if there's a government, she knows that, then she's going to act however she wants, because she is the ultimate trump card, you see? And that will make for a bad marriage, and then more divorce, and then more fucked up kids, and then little morality in society, then lots of premarital sex, then lots of incels, then revolutionary war as a result of the incel problem, and then mass death and mass chaos that comes along with the revolutionary war. And not good chaos, but bad chaos. Chaos, as I've said before in previous videos, can be of the good variety, such as under anarcho-capitalism. Peaceful, harmonious price discovery type of chaos. Or it can be, the utter insanity of the collapse of a civilization with mass death and poverty going along with chaos, right? So chaos can be good or bad, but when I'm talking about mass death and mass chaos here, I'm talking about the bad kind of chaos. So men have to be anarcho-capitalists to set a good example for women, if for no other reason. All women need to be anarcho-capitalists so that they don't believe that there should be a power that they can appeal to supersede their man's authority. And when you have a government, as always, the top men, who are usually evil, because psychopathic genes rise to the top, these psychopathic top men with high IQs and good memories and charm and good looks and, are psychopathic or partially psychopathic, these men, they rise to the top. They want to get into positions of power, right? And so they get into positions of power, and then because of their natural dominance instincts and their high testosterone, especially because they're not just guys, but they're high quality genetic guys. So not that psychopathic genes are high quality, but the rest of their genes are high quality. And so these guys, due to their, high quality genes, they have even higher testosterone than the average guy. And even the average guy wants to dominate women, right? So, the top guys, they want to dominate all women. So then they use their position in government to engineer society so that they can get control of all the women. So then they make misandric laws, et cetera, et cetera. It's not women doing it, it's men. But, women want the top men, and women foolishly think that, having more power over their husband and being able to ally with the state and all that, they foolishly think that that's to their advantage, not realizing that it's actually going to impoverish them and make it so that they're miserable and their daughters engage in premarital sex and they're miserable, and et cetera, et cetera. And that there's going to be, miscegenation propaganda, making it so that their grandkids are half black or half Latino or half Middle Eastern and therefore have 92 IQs. Women don't think about all that stuff ahead of time, so women think it's to their advantage to ally with top men and with government, so then they do. So the top men try to pass misandric laws and women support them. And the top men support women in their wanting to get the vote, and then women all, try to get the vote, and the top men use the excuse that a lot of women say they want the vote to give them the vote, and then women get the vote, and then they really help top men, and disenfranchise the bottom 99% of men or the bottom 80% of men, wherever you want to draw the line. You see, so this is how it is. This always is going to happen if there's a government. So any kind of statism is absolute cuckoldry. And as I said before in a previous video, top men are only statists because either they want the power by getting in positions of power or being in a corporation that allies itself with government and therefore gets more power and more, unfair money, no bid contracts, etc. Or, these guys are, they sort of believe in morality because they're only partial psychopaths, and they themselves know they lack proper restraint because they're partial psychopaths. And so these guys actually believe in statism because they know that they themselves need to be restrained, and they know themselves that they themselves are not going to restrain themselves because they lack a conscience, they lack compassion, they lack discipline, they have too high of a sex drive to control it, etc. So these top guys, a lot of them, the less bad ones, are still bad, but they're less bad. They're status because they know they need to be controlled. But truly moral people, which is most people, at least under a good society where they're raised to be moral, most people don't have the genes of even partial psychopathy, much less full psychopathy. And so most people can be moral on their own. And so most people really do not need government at all. And so for regular people to support government is absolute cuckoldry. They're cucking themselves by being statists, you see? But back to the script here. I went off script a little bit there to extemporaneously, explicate that stuff. But, like I said, if she knows she has that to turn to, that is government, greater authority, that supersedes, if she knows she has that to turn to, that greater authority that she can turn to, that supersedes her man's authority, if she knows the power is out, if she knows that power is out there, then she's going to act however she wants because she has the ultimate trump card, you see? And that will make for a bad marriage, and then more divorce, and then more fucked up kids, then little morality in society, lots of premarital sex, then lots of incels as a result of lots of premarital sex, because all the premarital sex is going to the top men. You got, 60% of the women going after, the top 20% of guys, or top 10% of guys or whatever, right? And then so tons of incels means revolutionary war, and then mass death and mass chaos comes along with the revolutionary war. So men have to be anarcho-capitalists to set a good example for women for no other reason, But like I was saying before, communes are such that you could say, well, they're just walking away and that's cowardly too. Well, not necessarily, because if they want to overthrow the government, then they're not being cowardly, especially if they're willing to join and fight and die in a revolutionary war if one arises and has a chance of winning. Kind of like how men who go MGTOW monk and who are brave enough to try to overthrow the government, if they get a chance to do so, and are brave enough to be making content saying that the government should be overthrown, these guys are actually not hypocrites. Just like the guys who form or join communes are not hypocrites, you see? So, at least if their commune is geared toward creating anarcho-capitalism in the world, ultimately, and is very eugenic and is very anti-government. So, it's a situation where it's like, it really depends on whether you're willing to do your part to overthrow the government. If you're living in a commune, but you are willing to fight in a revolutionary war if enough people outside the commune finally want to wage a revolutionary war, if you're willing to fight and you're advocating for revolutionary war, then I don't think it's cowardly to form a commune in the meantime. Just like if you go MGTOW monk and you're willing to take women back, then I don't think you're just cowardly running away from women. If you're willing to be a traditionalist, if we can get women back under control, then I don't think you're being a coward for being a MGTOW monk, for walking away from women. It's kind of the same thing. Why are you walking away? This is a critical question. Why are you walking away by forming a commune? Why are you walking away by going MGTOW? Why? This is the critical question, the why of it. And in what way are you walking away as well? If you're just walking away from women and being promiscuous still, and if you don't even want to overthrow the government, you don't even want to try, you're too cowardly to try. You feel no need to try because you don't care about other people or about society or about the people of the future who will be born into horrific slavery if we don't overthrow the government. You don't care about any of those people because you're a psycho. These people, these MGTOW guys are scumbags, are cowards, etc. You see? So you can go MGTOW in the right way, or you can go MGTOW in the wrong way. You can be promiscuous as a MGTOW, causing all the problems that you're complaining about, or you can be celibate as a MGTOW. Or you can, much better, but still destructive, but far less destructive, is being in a monogamous relationship as a MGTOW. Maybe you don't live with her, right? I'm not saying that's totally devoid of legal danger either. I'm just saying you're being far less destructive if you have a long-term girlfriend, if you're a MGTOW, and you're being monogamous. You can be promiscuous as a MGTOW, or you can be celibate as a MGTOW. Being promiscuous is immoral, and being celibate is moral. And I don't say this for any kind of religious reasons, or because I was raised religious or anything. I'm saying it because purely the economics and the dynamics and the consequences. I've thought it through in a way that I hadn't before, so now I have to come to the conclusion that promiscuity is immoral, and being celibate is moral. So there's a right way of going MGTOW and a wrong way of going MGTOW. And similarly, there's a right way of forming a commune and there's a wrong way of forming a commune. The wrong way of forming a commune is like the Amish or like hippies or, whatever. Just forming a commune so that you can just live your happy, free life in a commune. You don't want to have to live in a city because it's expensive. You don't want to have to do this. You don't want to have to do that. You want to make your own rules. You want to be independent or whatever. Independence is good. I'm not saying it's not better than living in a city, but, at the same time, you're in the wrong in the same way that people who live in the city are in the wrong. Because few of them are advocating for revolutionary war, you see? So if you're in the commune and are not trying to overthrow the government by preparing for the day when you can overthrow the government, or by creating a very eugenic commune, sacrificing, raising other men's children, that is, you're having your wife have a few kids by sperm bank sperm so that your commune can be far more eugenic, so that your commune will eventually have the intellect to code the government out of existence by eventually breeding scores of zeitgeist eaters, not dozens, but scores of zeitgeist eaters, like 20, 40, 60, 80 zeitgeist eaters. After a couple generations, you could breed scores of zeitgeist eaters. And after a few more generations of, a third or half of your kids being born from sperm bank sperm, you could have thousands of zeitgeist eaters in your commune, If you're not doing this, then you're doing communes in the wrong way, because you're acting like the tyranny is never going to come reach you. You're just going to be safe in your little commune, as if the government's increasing tyranny is never going to affect you, which is ridiculous. It will affect you eventually, and it will definitely affect your descendants. So if you're just forming a commune to live happily, you're fucking up. Just like if you're going MGTOW and are continuing to sleep with women, especially promiscuously, sleeping with a lot of women, like having a circle of femme-pets or fuck buddies or friends with benefits or whatever, or having a bunch of one-night stands, if you're doing that, you're fucking up. You're being evil. And you're creating all the problems that you're complaining about. Divorce rate, female psychopathy, female entitlement, gynocentrism, incels, etc. But if you're going MGTOW monk, or if you're forming a commune where you're being as eugenic as possible, breeding as much as possible in as eugenic a way as possible, being highly moral, saving as much money as possible, buying as much land as possible, etc., preparing for the future, preparing for the day, and teaching your kids how to code, and trying to make it so that, eventually your commune will have the power to either overthrow the government or code the government out of existence. If you're doing communes that way, then you're not fucking up. And if you've set the goal of your commune specifically to be the worldwide institution of anarcho-capitalism at some point in the distant future, then, you're not fucking up. If the goal is to make the commune super huge, super rich, super technologically advanced, and super high in IQ so that everybody in the commune eventually has a 160 IQ or higher after a few generations of breeding, like, let's say 5 generations, if that's your goal, if that's what you're working toward, then you are trying to essentially overthrow the government by living in a commune. This is not being cowardly. This is being wise. There's a wise way of forming a commune and a foolish way of forming a commune. There's a wise way of going MGTOW and a foolish way of going MGTOW. There's a moral way of going MGTOW and an evil way of going MGTOW. So this is actually not hypocritical for me to say about MGTOW, because my advocation for communes is not a flaw or a hypocritical statement when compared to the statement about how MGTOW is cowardly and evil and stuff like that in its foolish walking away. And another thing I want to say regarding fucking up is that if you're a parent and you're not teaching your kid, at least your male kids, martial arts, you are fucking up. And if you're not teaching your daughters to be very moral, very modest, very humble, very quiet, very submissive, very, patriarchal, very anarcho-capitalist, but at the same time very submissive to men, and this is not actually a contradiction. It may seem like it, but it's not. If you're not teaching your daughters to be very, very feminine and moral and sexually restrained, that is, not having sex until their wedding night, etc., if you're not teaching daughters this kind of stuff, then you're fucking up. And if you're not teaching your son how to speak Mandarin or Cantonese, considering China's going to be the future, I would say Hebrew, but, you know, the Jews are so racist. It's not like knowing Hebrew is going to benefit you. You know what I mean? So, you know, don't learn Hebrew, even though I think Israel will also rule the world in the future, probably. But definitely learn Chinese, you know, Mandarin or Cantonese. Mandarin's a more popular language than Cantonese, but Cantonese is pretty big in China as well. So one of those two languages, learning one of those two languages, you should, if you have a son, you should absolutely be teaching your son some martial art, so that he's very, very good at defending himself, and which will increase his confidence in multiple ways. And you should also be teaching your kid Mandarin or Cantonese. If you're not doing both of those things, you are fucking up. And I would also say, to a lesser degree, if you don't teach your kid a musical instrument like piano or something, you're also fucking up. You know, and if you're not teaching your kid, you know, weightlifting and cardio and stretching and all that physical stuff that he needs to know, you know, you're fucking up. Like, you should teach your kid to be a well-rounded person. You should teach him about gynocentrism, sound money, and the evil of fiat currency, you know, martial arts, teach him Chinese or Mandarin. You know, you should teach your kid all the stuff he needs to know. Your kid should be a well-rounded person by the time he's 18. If you have, I'm not blaming you if, like, your kid has been stolen from you and you can't raise your kid. But, like, if you can raise your kid, if you're seeing your kid every other weekend or every weekend or something, you should be teaching your kid some of this stuff, even if only a little bit. Even if you go and only teach your kid, you know, a few new Cantonese words or a few new Mandarin words every time you see him, or you can only teach him one new martial arts move every time you see him. Whatever. You should at least be teaching him a little bit of this stuff. You know, because then you'll be planting a seed, and then maybe the kid gets older, and then in college or after college, he wants to, you know, start paying for martial arts lessons so he can learn himself, and taking some serious Mandarin classes, or buying a few books, or taking a course or whatever, and learning Mandarin much, much better. You know what I mean? Like, you want to plant those seeds at the very, very least, because all this stuff is going to become very, very important in the future. You should be teaching your son how to code, or at least having someone else teach him how to code, or at least impressing upon him the importance of learning how to code as soon as he can, if he's able to do so, if he has a high enough IQ and a good enough memory. You see, if you don't do all this stuff, teaching your kid to code, teaching him martial arts, teaching him about the evil of gynocentrism, teaching him the importance of monogamy and traditionalism, teaching him the evil of government, teaching him about anarcho-capitalism, teaching him Mandarin, etc., etc. If you're not teaching your son all this stuff, you are fucking up, you know? I hope someone learned something new from this video. Then I hope you pay it forward, if you did. If you did learn something new from this video, I hope you pay it forward by recommending my channel to other people, because my channel being a glitch channel means I rarely get strikes and can thus say whatever the fuck I want with little fear of getting a strike, but it also means I rarely get new subscribers either. And getting the message out is important, and thus I want more subs, because these ideas won't do any good if no one hears them, and if no one turns them into a reality. We did not listen to Frank Herbert decades ago when we should have, when he was writing about the Bene Gesserit and their breeding programs. You know, but we can listen now. We can start our own breeding programs in communes and use sperm bank sperm for a third or half of our kids that we raise, you know, that our wife gives birth to. You know, half of the kids could be from our sperm and half of the kids could be sperm bank sperm that we raise, right? We could have like 6 kids, and 3 of the kids are from our sperm and 3 of the kids are from sperm bank sperm. And, you know, obviously our wife is the mother of all of them, but, you know, we raise them all as if they're all our own kids, right? And thus we can quickly, if we do this, we can quickly raise the IQ of the commune we live in very high. You know, we can, like, each generation could have a 10-point increase in IQ on average. You know, the first generation is 100 IQ, then after the sperm bank sperm is introduced into it, and those kids marry the other kids, and then the grandkids could have 110, 120, maybe even 130 IQs. You know, from a jump from 100 IQ just in 2 generations. You know, their kids and then their kids. You know, their kids and then their kids' kids. I mean, the grandkids. They could have, you know, 20, 30 point higher IQs. At least 10 points higher, definitely. That's undeniable, right? So, you could radically and very quickly raise the IQs of the commune up to the level at which, after, you know, like, by the time the great-grandkids of the kids, by the time the great-grandkids of the people who founded the commune are born, those great-grandkids are born, and they're like, you know, 15 or whatever, they will all definitely have IQs high enough to learn how to code. And then almost everybody in the new generation in the commune can learn how to code. They'll all be keeping their computers clean. They'll all be coding subversive code. It'll be extremely, useful in fighting the government and in keeping Tor going and in, you know, making Tails better and all the rest of it. You see, This is really, really, really important. And the guys in the commune who are leading the commune will probably have much, not like official leadership positions, but, unofficial leadership because they're much better memories, much higher IQs, much more knowledge, quicker minds, more charm, etc. Like these guys will be leading the commune. These guys, the unofficial leaders of the commune, these guys, a lot of them will have high IQs. Maybe some of them even have 140, 150, 160 IQs, right? So these guys don't, for eugenic purposes, need to have kids by sperm bank sperm, but they should anyway, to set a good example for all the other guys in the commune, because the other guys in the commune are not going to want to have half their kids be born from sperm bank sperm. The guys leading the commune are making themselves exempt and are not doing that themselves. So even if you do have a really high IQ, like 160 IQ, and you live in the commune with your wife and you want to have a bunch of kids, you too should be having half your kids be from sperm bank sperm to set a good example for all the low IQ, like 100, 110, maybe even 95 IQ people in the commune, so that they do it also, so that you can raise the average IQ in the commune. Because if everybody in the commune doesn't do it, then it doesn't work. So, the top guys have to set the example by also doing it. Plus, it increases the genetic diversity of the commune, which is also a good thing, making it so that you don't need to bring in outside people into the commune. And if you don't have to bring in outside people into the commune, then you're not risking the CIA or the military or whoever sending spies into your commune. If you just grow your commune purely through breeding, just by having more and more kids each generation, every couple has like 6 to 10 kids, well, then the commune stays basically completely immune from, spies from the government. And this is a very, very important and good thing, because the government does. I read about some program the government had a few decades back or something where it infiltrated basically every militia in the U.S. I can't remember what the program is called, but they put spies into every militia. So, like, they would absolutely do that with communes as well, especially if those communes are doing a bunch of subversive coding. So you have to keep outsiders out. You can't recruit anyone into the commune after like the first or second generation. It's just going to be too dangerous in terms of like letting spies into the commune. Spies, government spies. So, like like I said, if you, use sperm bank sperm for like a third or half of the kids that you raise, and everybody in the commune does that, you can quickly raise the IQ of the commune very high, thus quickly making the commune both very technologically savvy and very promiscuous. Sorry, I said very promiscuous. I didn't mean to say that. What did I mean? Prosperous. I meant to say prosperous, right? Sorry. Thus making the commune very technologically savvy, very prosperous, and very luxurious due to the, prosperity, meaning you can, build a bunch of pools and spas and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Steam rooms and hot tubs and stuff like that, right? And, it being very luxurious means it's going to be a place that more of the high IQ sons, the higher IQ they're going to get, the more they're going to want to leave to live a luxurious life outside the commune. But if you make the commune really luxurious, then the high IQ people born in the commune will have no interest in leaving. You see, because it'll be just as nice, if not nicer, in the commune than it is anywhere outside the commune, right? So yeah, but like regarding spies and stuff, if the commune allowed outsiders into the commune past the first or maybe past the second generation, then the government would certainly eventually send CIA spies into the commune, and that would be a great danger to the commune, because that agent would almost certainly infect most or all of the computers in the commune with malware through a thumb drive, so that the government could surveil everything being done by the commune, including the code they're writing, and that would like give the government an excuse to raid the commune and confiscate the land and the property and the wealth of the commune, and or maybe they wouldn't even have to come in and steal the wealth. If the government, they either come into the commune and then they steal all the wealth if the commune has made a bunker that they underground that they put all the gold and silver and platinum and palladium and rhodium in that they're saving in that form. They're saving money in the form of precious metals. Well, then the government comes in with SWAT and they take over the commune and then they steal the gold and silver. A civil asset forfeiture. It's legal theft. That's what the government does all the time. I can't remember what the number is, billions or whatever. It's an astronomical amount of money every year that the government steals through civil asset forfeiture, which has been found constitutional by the Supreme Court. The stupid, tyrannical Supreme Court has called that blatantly unconstitutional thing constitutional. So yes, the government does this all the time. And you say, well, we'll just save in cryptocurrency. Okay, well then the government putting malware into all the computers, the spy in the government, because you letting outsiders into your commune, the spy will go along, put that little thumb drive for just 1 or 2 seconds into each computer when someone's not looking, one computer at a time. Every time he finds someone away from their computer for a second or two, boom, he sticks that little thumb drive in for a second, then pulls it out, and then boom, now the computer's infected. He does that with every computer over a period of weeks or months, and now every computer in the commune is infected. And now they can surveil, the government can surveil all the cryptocurrency passwords that everybody has. And so then you put your cryptocurrency in a Bitcoin address or whatever, and then the government knows that address and that password for it, and then the government can just steal all that cryptocurrency. You see? So like any kind, like even the 1% chance of allowing a government spy into the commune is just way too big of a risk to take. Way too big. So really, the only way to grow a commune safely is by breeding. Just like the first generation of men all get together, they form the commune, and then no one else is ever allowed inside the commune again. No one else is recruited into the commune. All the growth of the commune is from breeding from then on. Right? That's the only way to do it that's safe. Right? That's my opinion. I don't know. Maybe there's some things I'm not thinking of here or there or whatever. Perhaps I guess Skeeter could make an intelligent comment, mentioning on whether this is viable or not, or whether there's some things I'm not thinking of regarding this kind of thing, regarding computer security or whatever. He's a really smart guy. But this is my view on it currently. This has been Redshift, Peace Trucks for Promiscuous Men.